for a total of 32 years now. So I can retire at any point. But I actually like doing maintenance. I work on, big presses and just kind of robots and all this kind of stuff from a mechanical standpoint. And I definitely enjoy that on a day to day. But also with my seniority and stuff, I have an office job. Most of the time at work, I would say 70-30. 70% of the time I sit in an office at a computer and order parts for people. I get tools, things like that, parts for things that we need to repair and all that kind of stuff, since I have a good knowledge of what's broken or what people need and all that kind of stuff. So it's, I like it because I'm able to help others, kind of the same in the IT field, right? You get to help others, and that's kind of what makes the world go around. And so I'm enjoying life. Still collecting Star Wars Legos. I just started 3D printing. So I went from one 3D printer about 4 months ago. I think I put over 1,000 hours on it. And I bought a second one. I don't know why, but I just did.
So it's very funny that you should say that, because I'm in now over the last 3 to 4 years. I've been an avid 3D printer myself. I have 4 printers now.
Nice.
And so I've invested in the Creality line. And funny enough, I was last episode from last week, we had Mr. John Dubinsky, as you know, a former friend of ours. I'm sorry, friend of ours, formerly of the Maven Group. And
I was going to say he's a former friend, huh?
Yeah, no. They mean like that. No, still very much the same. And so we were talking about that. And as he was helping us rebuild our networks and standardize and things of that nature, he started looking into, he's like, it's amazing on what you can see on this Unify stuff. Oh, hey, you got this here, you got that printer there, you got this going on there. And he's like, oh man, I got to make Pago money over there for how many printers you got on that site. So, but again, it's just a joyous and having him around has been such a great joy. But importantly, which is kind of a timely mention here, we have our first pop in here for the episode. We'll see how many else will be jumping in here. But who may I be talking about, because the timing is just impeccable, is none other than Mr. John Dubinsky.
My timing's always perfect.
What's going on, John?
Paco, you didn't tell me you're having old man winter on.
So,
Mr. Halash, it's a pleasure to see you, my friend. How are you, sir?
You too. I am doing just awesome. I'm sure down in Florida, it's probably a little bit warmer than it is up here in the northern
Oh, we're
area.
suffering through it's a pretty brutal winter storm coming through right now. It's in the low 60s, so I am suffering big time. I got a sweatshirt on and my hoodie ready in case. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So nice. you know something just happened, because I just looked at the view count right now. It just went from 4 people to 17.
-7? Okay.
It went up to 17 people to come in there, but no, it's -7 is what it feels like over here. It's 20 degrees, feels like 10 on this side.
Yeah, it's pretty cold here too.
But this genuinely, for me, this was more of I'm glad to see all of us here, because, we all had such a big part in transitioning and getting MSP Unplugged off the ground in the beginning days, and especially with TechCon and things of that nature. So this is a true awesome circle moment. And John, I appreciate you popping in here. So no, we just been playing catch up with Jeff here, because it's been quite some time, right? And we were going through on those things. And in that piece, Jeff, and I'm going to probably pop in with you, John, depending on how much time you got, is, what do you miss most about podcasting and the MSP community? Has there been anything that kind of just gives you a little bit of an itch and, man, I remember those type of days, or you're so happy to not have to pick up on the microphone again and do an interview?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's really the people, right? And I know that's very cliche, and a lot of people would say that, but that's really the reason that any of us ever did what we did or do what we do, right? I really enjoyed the people. I enjoyed people that were getting something from the information they were putting out there. So that part of it I do miss. As far as having to schedule and put stuff together and all the work behind that, nobody really understands what goes into that until you actually do it for yourself. And then you're like, light bulb, you're like, oh, that's why they, all you have to do is flick a switch. Well, we say that at work all the time, or actually the bosses say that at work all the time. All you have to do is, and it's never that simple, right? So, but with that being said, yeah, the people is really the biggest portion that I miss of the community, and really that's what everything's built on. So, that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Gotcha.
Honestly, I would back that up 100%. I would say I'd never really loved the podcast, but I can't say I did the work that you guys do. Jeff, when I was on with you, you were the guy doing the recording, doing the editing, doing all that. All I had to do is some prep work, try to be prepared for the show, come on, try to do the best I could, and then hang up. Then I was done.
Right.
So, and then the hard part started. So, so I could go out and just, maybe look good. So I got to wear the rose-colored glasses and, gather the fame, but that without doing any of the real sweat work. So, looking back, I do appreciate that, and I do know I told you guys that back then.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that is the true work, and knowing a little bit about that, having been involved way back when with you guys, and obviously Paco currently, it makes me appreciate when I listen to a well-edited, well-prepared podcast, or even a YouTube, whether it be a short or something on a topic that I enjoy watching. People that take the time to do that. Not when you know. It's not like, well, it was a 20-minute program, but I'm pretty sure they spent more than 20 minutes on that.
Right.
For sure. So
it's amazing. I do miss those days for sure, on being able to just hit the record and Jeff's got it, and I remember when obviously when we started, when we were on Podnuts, right? And so you were doing Computer Repair Podcast. I was doing Podnuts Daily at the time / Tech Life. And you were showing me how to do the edits and stuff. And it was like, holy shit, like there's a whole weekend that you have dedicated to ensure that it was scheduled. The guests had their calendar invites. They were contacted on how to take care of those things. There's, as you said, there's a lot of work that gets into it. And I think one thing that has always stuck with me that you had mentioned is, you will see, and even now to this day, there's such a saturation of podcasts in our space now, and now with events. But I remember you saying, everyone wants to do a podcast until, like you said, they figure out the work. And you will see how quickly these podcasts will come and how fast these podcasts will go. And I will tell you that now, having been, and believe it or not, it's been 10 years since you've been involved, or actually it's been 11 years since you had started taking over the Computer Repair Podcast. It's been 10 years since I've been involved, back in 2015, when you gave me the opportunity to come on the show and started being the co-host and giving me a little responsibilities and things of that nature on that particular program. There have been a lot I've seen come, and there's been a lot you see that go. And the coolest thing to see is when you tell someone, hey, yeah, I'm a podcaster, and they get that face like, okay, yeah, podcaster. But then when you say you've been around for 10 years, oh, you're a real podcaster. That gives you
Right.
the opportunity to show just what you've seen, a few things, right? And so that's been pretty cool. And looking back, John, you had something you were going to say, or?
No. I mean, I guess to follow up on what Jeff said, to be cliche, it is about the people. If I missed anything about it, it would have been like, the Grand Rapids meetup. That was a very good meetup. Maybe some fond memories. I believe was at another location that I had to help Jeff get out of bed a few times. I didn't want to bring anything up, but 2 weeks ago, when you said that Jeff was going to be on the show and we were talking about it, and I said, well, yeah, it's been far too long since I've exchanged some words with my friend. And then I have been looking for my hair, and now I know where it went. So,
That's funny.
Now, obviously we look back, right, and we kind of take a look, and Jeff, obviously these are questions that I sent you earlier today, so I don't know if you've had a chance to take inventory and kind of look back and some of your favorite moments, but was there ever an episode or an era of when you were recording that ever just stood out with you, that that either impacted you in the way you did things, or just a matter of something that stuck with you, whether it was a tip, a trick, the interview story, or just roundabout a friendship you made while kind of recording over the years?
Well, let me start with this first of all. You guys, I want to go back a little bit to the podcasting thing, because you guys, because you took an interest in the podcasting, right? And you said, "Hey, I want to come in, I want to help, and I want to do all this," right? It was a breath of fresh air, because when you're just kind of out there doing things by yourself, when somebody actually shows interest and they want to even do a little bit, it is a big help. It's more help than what you could actually realize. One of the things, second of all, I didn't see that list until probably about 15 minutes before the show, because I'm a perfect guest where I don't pay attention to anything other than the time. So with that being said, I looked at it and I said, is this a 4-hour podcast or what? Because that's an awful lot of questions.
just points that we're gonna hit.
Well, we didn't expect a diatribe on each one, a Halash breakdown of the last 20 years.
Do you guys remember me at all? Come on.
Yeah, that's also true. Well, that's why I said. So it was funny because me and John were joking the other day. We were saying, "Oh, we're gonna try and keep this a 30-minute podcast." I was like, Hash is going to be on next week. We'll see. It might be an hour one. We'll see.
This should have been the New Year's Eve show, so we could just keep going.
There you go. Into the new year. So anyway, one of the things I remember is when I first started podcasting is that, going back to your original question, one of the shows I remember, and it was a show that I did with a guy who had basically was doing franchising MSP shops or computer repair shops. And it was one of the original ones. And I got him. I think he was in Spain or somewhere overseas. Anyways, he had sold his house, his wife and 2 kids, and they basically traveled around the world, and they would stay there for 6 months, a year at a time. And I was, one of the questions I asked him, which really astounded me, I go, gosh, that's got to be expensive. And he said, you'd be surprised. And I think even back then, I think the total living cost, and this was 2014, the total living cost at that time to have a place to stay, to have, food on the table and all that kind of stuff, it was like $3,000 a month. And I was just astounded. I'm like, well, crap, anybody could do that then, you know? And so stuff like that always fascinated me in the beginning, where I was like, oh, these people are doing something new, interesting, something you don't hear every day. So those types of things would stand out to me as far as some of the first podcasts.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's funny too, because it's like back in 2014, Airbnb wasn't a thing, right? And so that's like the most readily available thing that I could think of that someone would rely on a long-term stay and things of that nature. So the fact that someone had the ability to take the courage to do that, but also I think that's with anything, with any type of big purchase, everyone thinks it's so out of reach without really doing the investigation and research to figure out how that can be a benefit to them, right?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Jeff, if I can interrupt, because you just brought 2 really important things. You brought some information that nobody ever heard of before and tied it into what everybody was tuning into, meaning computer repair at that time. And you told a great story. I mean, it was a great story. So, I mean, and that's why I think people listen, and especially why I think people listen to you back in the day. So
appreciate that.
Now, was there any outside of that story, was there ever a memorable guest or a community story that kind of came about when either on the computer repair podcast or Podnuts days, or when we transitioned over to MSP Unplugged? Was there ever a guest outside of Mr. John Dubinsky that ever stood out to you to say, you know what, that was a guest that I would love to have them come back on, because they just always had great information to share every time?
Yeah, I think there's a guy named Paco LeBron that's That's it. Like I said, he showed some interest, and no, there's many guests, and I'll be honest with you. Everybody has an interesting story, and everybody has an interesting take on those things that they're going through in their lives. So I found a lot of people very interesting to see how they were doing business. You look at guys like Anthony Remus, who I still keep in contact periodically. Right, this guy still thanks me today for letting him know that it was okay to do the type of business he was doing when everybody else in the MSP community was telling him, no, you can't do it. You can't sell high-end computers. There's a bunch of boutiques out there. You're never going to make it. You can't. And a guy's still doing it here years later, right? And enjoying it, having a good time. Every time I go to build a computer, I call him up. I say, hey, what's the latest, greatest? Where do I need to be? What do I need to put together to build another computer? And he'll let me know, hey, here's where we're at. And this is the stuff I'm using for a lot of his high-end stuff. And I'm like, that's the information and stuff that I like. So guys like that. But I mean, really, everybody brought a certain story or different take on life in the computer repair MSP world.
I think, and it's funny, speaking of Anthony Remus, I think if it wasn't for the podcast, I wasn't able to transition the lead over to Anthony. And I don't know if they're still working with them for to this day. But they needed a high-end PC maker that wasn't just like, I forgot the name of the companies at the time that were known for building high-end PCs. They needed someone that knew what they had they were like a big streaming video editing company. They were streaming like the Oscars and things of that nature at the time. And so they needed something that was going to be robust, but someone they can talk to, someone that understood and knew their stuff. And so it ended up working out that I was able to make that connection, but I would have never known had it been not the exposure of the podcast. There were other things too that I used to love, especially on the Podnuts Daily episodes. There was a series of questions that you would always ask. And one of them was, what is your favorite tip, trick, or story that you would have them answer? And I don't know why this is the one that sticks out to me. And it's nothing like this crazy, what they used to call a duplicator called the Goblin. It wasn't about the iFixit repair toolkit. It was someone that you had, and I couldn't tell you who this guest was. And all I remember was, hey, if I want to clean a computer really well for the customer, I use Armor All leather wipes versus any other PC cleaning wipes to give them a better shine and a better coat and a better clean for their PCs to present back to them. And I just remember hearing that tip, and I was like, damn, that's a really great tip for that. I would have never thought about that. And ever since then, because at the time I ran my break fix shop, computer repair shop part-time. And so I was working full time. I get the repairs at the virtual office, take it home, have it repaired, clean it up, do that, bring it back to the office, and then have it presented back to them, right? And it was just a way of understanding an experience for a client and understanding how that guest did it. Just stuck with me until to this day, all these years, to the point where we still have this, the phrase of, hey, what's your tip, trick, or story in the beginning of the podcast? So
there's no residual money for that, Jeff, just so you know.
And so,
Sorry.
there was no worries. And so, I think the biggest piece for, you just mentioned about tech, right? And I want to talk a little bit about, how you kind of view the tech landscape today, right? And, you have resources you can call to kind of see what's going on nowadays. How do you kind of see tech nowadays? Like, do you feel that, what do you feel has gotten better? What do you feel like things have gotten more complicated? Are you still using some of the same vendors that you used to purchase from? Have you found new vendors? How has Jeff's, tech view changed over the last 4 years?
Well, that's a great question. I hate tech. I think it's absolutely horrible and horrendous, and just it's so overly complicated. It sucks the time out of your life. So from that standpoint, when I look at tech, I get people that still call me periodically, right? Hey, can you remote in and look at your computer? Yeah, no, I don't have time for that. So sorry. I don't even know what to use. You go to try to use something, whether it's, Google or something like that, or a free tool. I don't really have a whole lot of my tools left anymore.
Okay.
I do think I have. John, what was the one that you used? I think I paid for a lifetime subscription for it. There was, and I can't remember.
You talking
Yes.
about UVK? Yeah.
UVK.
Yeah.
So I still have
Solid.
that. I still update it. It works for the handful of things that I need to do to my computer. But I will say this, from a Windows standpoint, so back in the day when it first started, I would have to reinstall my operating system probably every 6 months. And we're talking back early 2000s, right? So every 6 months, and then I would spend like a total of 13 hours setting this thing up to getting it back to where it needs to be. The only time I really reinstall an operating system now is really when I build a computer. There's nothing to Windows maintains itself pretty well. Even from the standpoint, even in the corporate standpoint with what I use at work, everything pretty much just works for what we need it for. Now, again, most of the software and things that are out there, we're only probably using 10% of the total capability of any of that stuff anyways. So whether it be Excel, Word, any of these tools, we're using the portion that we need. So it's funny you mentioned about new vendors and stuff like that. So I had all my business class routers and stuff like that. Well, my Wi-Fi router just recently started going on a fritz, and I was dropping connection, and my router started messing up. So, and I went back to the old school. I'm going to go to one unit. So I bought an Asus router, got rid of all the rest of the stuff. I got a dumb switch just to hook a handful of things up, and I'm good to go, so I don't have to maintain all that stuff anymore. Still do the VLANs and all that kind of stuff but everything you can pretty much do inside the Asus router fairly easily. I would say even a little bit more easily than you can some of your business class stuff, even though you can really dig down in the weeds with some of your business class stuff to do corporate IT.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, last episode, me and John went through a whole conversation of on how VLANing was, and even down to the stack of networking equipment that we're using now. As you know, we were very against the Ubiquity stuff many, many years ago. And now that's what we've adopted over the last year and 12 months. And so it's made a believer out of the both of us. And just, even John mentioned the right brain, left brain of looking at VLANs differently across the way of doing certain things across the networks. And so that's been very interesting. I'm just curious, was the previous equipment you had before the same equipment you've had for quite some time that was a vendor we all used to use and love, or it was a consumer? Okay.
No, it was, the whole Watt box. And what was the name of that company?
It doesn't matter. They're dead to us. So,
oh, really? Okay.
In the words of Jeff Halash, but that's another time for another conversation. But it's been interesting. No, I mean, I think that we're at a point now where there's so many new technologies and vendors kind of out there that are really pushing the edge on the things that they do and working on the simplicity, right? And being able to get to a point where, doing what you need to do for your size client and being able to develop solutions a lot more easily, much more cost effectively, and much more with proper value, right? And so I was just curious as to that equipment there on that side. But I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm only asking this question because I'm hoping that we will get another Jeff-ism that's going to be repeated to it. Now, there's a term that's been overused probably the last 24 months, right? Everyone's using it. Everyone's putting it in all their stuff.
Oh, God.
It's been the top of the trade. AI.
Oh, my God. Oh, just fucking kill me now. Oh, my God. So, so it's funny because even outside of the IT industry, right? Inside of, so we have all these things we're doing. So I've talked to my son. He's using Chat, GPT to basically do his schoolwork. Yep. I'm like, okay. guys are writing or, trying to figure out how to do something, and they're going to AI. I'm like, AI is only as smart as the information that's actually put in there by a human being.
Right.
So this guy goes on there, and we needed a plan for doing something. And it wrote like a 50-page dissertation on all the things that had nothing to do with what he was actually asking. It was so outside the realm. You're just like going. And what I noticed with AI is really great at repeating itself over and over and over again. The same thing. And so I'm going to take an article, I'm going to take a paragraph, and I'm going to turn it into an article that's, again, 50 pages long, saying the same things over and over again. It is so ridiculous. And I can't understand. I get it. Everybody gets on the bandwagon of these new, I don't even know what they're called, these new, hippie terms, for lack of better words. And we're going to go, yeah, AI is going to solve the world, solve all our problems. The other thing we're doing is talking about Chat GPT, right? We have this thing right now where and I'm going to give you guys an example. So I work at Ford Motor Company. I work in the automotive industry with presses, robots, yada, yada, building cars. So they're trying to put this chat box together. The problem is what they want to do is they want to use it for diagnosing when things break on a press or a robot. So you can basically go in there and go, hey, what do I do? The problem is some schmuck somewhere has to basically upload all the manuals that are crap information anyways, because if they were any good, then none of us would have a job because it's so stupid. So it's so ridiculous how everybody just gloms onto these things and says, hey, I'm going to run with this. And it's the next thing. It's like electric cars. We saw the whole electric car. Oh, 2030, man, electric cars all the way 100%. No, it's not that simple. But,
there's a couple people on these podcasts that might have an electric car or two in their.
There you go.
So we'll see.
There's nothing wrong with them. But again, even in today's day and age, we are early adopters, regardless, right?
No,
we're adopting technology. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't. You got to move the needle. We got to get better, right? So we've got to be able to get stuff that's going to make us better. But I think a lot of times, again, we get stuff that makes our lives more complicated and not simple. And I'll tell you right now. So I have a Ford Explorer built in Chicago, and it has Ford Blue Cruise on it. Mm-hmm. And going down the expressway, driving hands-free, it's kind of cool. So I can't, I've said this before. When I used to travel to Chicago, I had adaptive cruise control, right? Adaptive cruise control, you could set it up. I'd be in the middle lane at 70 miles an hour, and I wouldn't touch the gas pedal or the brake for whatever it was, a couple hundred miles that I had to travel there. And it was awesome. So stuff like that. So we're getting some things that we actually need and are helping. And then other things that people are just going, oh, I'm going to type in a question in the computer, and it's going to spit me an answer back out. And I've got supervisors and stuff right now that have been in the industry for a while. We're out there diagnosing a problem on a press line, and these guys they're on their phones Googling. It's like we've got a cylinder that's not moving because it's stuck. And this idiot comes up and goes, hey, look, he goes, it's a sensor. And I'm like, you don't think that's the first thing I looked at when I walked in the cell? Are you stupid? Get out of my way.
Now, what I will say is that, I think for, in the AI conversation, there's a lot of, the best way to say it is the regurgitation of information, right?
Yes.
There is regurgitation instead of pure actual thought. Instead of creating thought leadership, which is what everyone is trying to do when they leverage AI, there's a lot of thought regurgitation. And the problem with that, as you have mentioned, is garbage in, garbage out. And depending on how it's collecting the data and the sources that it's grabbing is not going to give you what you're looking for, right? I think the other piece is that everyone believes it's going to be original work when you're prompting this, whatever basis of a public type of AI. And so what I would implore those, and for those that attended the last TechCon Unplugged Roadshow in Dallas, as you saw through the workshop, we told you two questions. ask the AI, what's the best IT company that's there? And then the second question is, why didn't it suggest you? And
That's a good one.
what was done in even more detail is understanding that the AI, especially for those that are using a public AI, the more questions you're asking about, you treating it like Google, you're showing it that maybe that company doesn't know what it should be doing. And it goes back to, hey, every level 1 technician is just Googling things to figure it out versus understanding what the issue is. To those companies, technicians that do understand what's going on and augmenting Google to those knowledge, there's a big difference. And the AI, and through this exercise that was being done in Dallas, was, what does the AI think about you? And why didn't it suggest you? And some of them could be, hey, it's because this company outbeat you by ranking or reviews or things of that nature. I've seen results that say, we just think you're incompetent because you've asked us 15 million questions over the last 12 months, So there are things, depending on the model you use, will be depending on how truthful it will be for you as well. So I only asked that question specifically for, one, to get your take, but two, I was hoping you'd say something for Mr. Jerry Bransfield that he always loves that you say every single time. So
I'd rather stick 2 forks in my eye. I was just thinking about that the other day. Didn't have anything to do with AI.
Moving it along, right? I think that, for those, again, this is a new year catch up. We're 4 years after here. As we've discussed, you are no longer running TechNut PC right now, in active practice. If you were to restart TechNut, because I think, in over the years, you have mentioned that you were keeping that business for your family, for legacy, if maybe your sons to get involved, things of that nature. If you were to restart it today, what would be the first couple things that you would do to kind of get back into on the horse for starting up TechNut PC?
Yeah, I did see that question. And that is another great question. And I think just starting from ground zero again, if you were to, I would probably go more into, and I'm gonna say this, coming from a break fix standpoint, pretty much most of my career, right? I would probably go into something where I'm doing smaller businesses, more managed services, kind of like what John was doing back in the day, with different offices and stuff like that. And I notice, even in today's day and age, hospitals, doctors' offices, dentists, and all, they're still I know, John, you went through this too. They're still not following all the things that they need to follow to be, quote unquote, up to par, right? So with that being said, I would still probably start there, just because although break fix is great if you really like to dig into the weeds and troubleshoot, right? I'd rather maintain something at this point and kind of have that residual income that everybody is looking for. It just makes a lot more sense to me, I think, at this point. And I'm a fair bit lazy, so there's that.
As many times as I had you on, John, I never asked you if you ever had the inkling to ever want to do a tech business again down the line. I know you're enjoying retirement, but if you ever did have that itch to get back into the space, what would that be? And what would you do to kind of push that along?
I do it the exact same way again, just hopefully not make all the thousands of mistakes I made along the way the first time.
Yeah. Okay. How about we word this? What's one mistake that you probably would have avoided if you would, or done differently if you were to restart?
That is an absolutely epic question.
So as you chew on that, I will go ahead and say mine. For me, I think it's learning to outsource or partner with other companies to do things that I have no desire to do. And specifically is cabling, low voltage cabling, and putting on those ends. You will not catch me doing that here today. You will not catch me doing that for the next MSP that if I were to build. And you will not catch me doing that for any other tech thing. I will learn to create partnerships to help leverage things that I don't or not am good at, and allow me to move forward on some other things that hopefully provide value a lot faster.
Well, I will second that, because I would say that is probably one of the hubs, or excuse me, the primary spokes in my success, was that I did just that. Did not pull my own cable. I had a great partner to do that. I did not want to do VoIP telephones, so I had a great partner to do that. Did not want to do copy machines, so I had a great partner to do that. So I would say those relationships probably fed at least probably 20% of my success easily. So those are wise words coming from you, Paco. I still don't have my epic failure that I would recommend. Let me chew on that a little bit longer.
Sounds good. Well, we'll pass over a little bit more on with Jeff here. And so, one of the questions is, when someone exits, whether it is to, pursue other desires, whether it's for retirement, things of that nature, oftentimes I always hear from people that they, used to invest and put so much into their business that once it's gone, they've kind of lost their identity a little bit. That because that was all they did, and that's what they found, either the passion, the love, things of that nature. Jeff, when you decided to fully focus on Ford and with family and all your other things you were interested in, did you have any? I don't know if there's any like angst or things that you felt like you were missing, but was it an easy transition to go ahead and do what you wanted to do, because obviously you got to a point where you were done and ready to move on to the next chapter of your life? Or was it something where you kind of had to get used to and ease into what you're doing now, and how was that feeling?
Did I mention how much work break fix and podcasting was?
Yes.
No, it was actually a pretty easy transition, as far as it was just something else to, unfortunately, let go, that I just didn't have to be honest with you, here's the difference, right? I didn't have as much passion towards it. I was even getting to the point where I hated working on other people's computers. I also hated working on my own computer. And so I have a high-end machine that I game on, and that's all I do, right? So other than that, if I've got to sit there and troubleshoot, I've got a problem with a monitor right now, and I was switching cables and all that kind of stuff, trying to troubleshoot the whole problem and everything. And it's one of those things where I just go, God, I just want to sit down and play. I just want to enjoy. I just want to, and quite honestly, because I went from a production standpoint at Ford Motor Company, working 40 some odd hours a week for the most part, to 70 to 80 hours in skilled trades.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the time anymore. I mean, it was a lot of time that I was spending working, and it was, fairly good money for doing that. So to do something else on the side, it happens to a lot of us. A lot of people go from production into skilled trades. And when that happens, all the hobbies and different things that they had on the outside, or things they did for businesses, making t-shirts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they would, at some point they go, yeah, I'm done. I don't have the time to do it anymore. So that's kind of a little, so it was long-winded. It was very easy to let go, because it was a thing that I had to constantly do. And and going back, it's funny, because sometimes you get so overburdened with, we're podcasting once a week, and everything's going on. And there were times where I would sit down and go, God, I hope they don't show up today, because I just want to go.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there. That's for sure. And the reason I ask is because I was there back in, I think it was like 2019. I took that summer off from podcasting, and I truly thought that was it, that I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. And there was just such a itch of, I wanted to go back. And it was, I don't know if it was a fact of like, I had more to give, or I missed it, or whatever the case may be. And some, people who tend to leave things tend to have that itch or want, because they remember the times when they did enjoy it. Right. So that's the question from there. Mr. Dubinsky, I think for my question for you is, when I think now I keep you busy from time to time when I have you come back from Prodigy Techs, right?
Busy enough.
When you transitioned off and sold, was that a hard transition for you, or was it just time and you were just able to make that transition, enjoy retirement, and then, as I mentioned, come back when you were ready to just tickle the itch of something tech wise or getting into that space again?
I would say the only transition and problem I had, and I don't even know if I would classify it as a quote unquote problem, is if you own your own business, especially if you're a solopreneur or you're very involved in the entity you're running, whether that's you alone or with multiple people, you have to find something if you're the type of person that to fulfill the hunt. So every morning I got up, I went out, I hunted, killed what I needed to kill, brought it home, fed my family. So, and I did that 60, 70 hours a week while filling in, all the other hours with, exercise, time with my daughter, time with my wife, as we all do in any role we do. So now that 60, 70 hours a week are all mine. And so one, it's very easy to fill that with family and all
Yeah.
that sort of thing, which is very great. And then you can also take a lot more time for yourself, concentrate a little bit more on health, exercise, fitness, all the other stuff that you've totally let go due to your other passions, possibly.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can find some other things that you like to do and fill that time, whether that's just time with family, friends, sitting in front of the TV, gaming, whatever you like. The beautiful thing is I'm blessed enough to say that I do what I want to do every day now. And that's kind of the magical part of it. I don't have others to answer to, even though I was the boss of the company. Literally I got 60 bosses that could call me at any particular time to do something for them. So, that's the magic. That's the transition or the little transition I went through. And maybe the magic advice wouldn't be the biggest problem I ever had, but my advice to anybody that's going to transition from owning a business to retirement or retire from wherever they're working is, two things I would look at is you have to look at yourself personally and see if you're content, meaning if you can just be content, or if you're going to be the type of person that you honestly need to find something to fill that time, or you'll be miserable. If you're the latter, meaning you can't be content unless you're doing something, don't quit your job until you find something to fill that time. Because that's the biggest problem I see with people down here is they can't find a way to be content.
Yeah.
So they are not happy until they find something to fulfill whatever it is they're looking for. Me, I have no problem being content. So that was not a problem.
That's awesome.
I get these irritating calls every couple of months about doing networking work for some company in Chicago, but
because he's just so good at it. But what I
and
would
I'm
say
happy to
is,
do it as long as I don't have to talk to anybody else. But
I think from that just threw my train of thought. But I think for the fun part about that is, transition is such a big thing, and being insatiable is a blessing and a curse, right? And being able to, for those that do have that drive and have to continue and have to feel something in there, as you mentioned, if you don't have a plan and you don't have an idea, or if you've invested so much in your business and the business is gone, the business is not your identity. And so those are things to think about if you're ready to start hanging it up and start looking for an exit. What does that look like? You are not your business at that point. And so that's something to kind of consider as well. So,
I think you might have said the magic word identity. People don't know what they're supposed to be doing or who they are anymore. So, you better figure that out before you have nothing to do.
Right. So, with all that, I mean, I think this was such a great conversation that we had for tonight. And, I'm going to lead this into one last question, and that's going to be, what's next for Jeff? Obviously, Jeff has been for the last 4 years living and doing all the things, right? And so what's new for you? What do you have coming on the horizon? And most importantly, Mr. Taz Cool wants to know, what's the copter update?
It's funny because that is one of the things I've been working on. I meant to get more into it this year. I actually had my 21-year-old son was helping me do some work on it and get some stuff ready to go. I pretty much have everything for it. I just need to bolt everything on, put a couple instruments on, and it's pretty much ready to go. And then just need to test fly it and all that kind of stuff. So my hope is for this year, once it gets a little warmer outside, because I don't have my hangers is a little on the chilly side. There's no heat or anything inside. My goal would be to get that thing at least up in the air at some point during this year. So, or during this year coming up in 2026. And then as far as what I'm doing, I would love to game more, maybe work a little bit less. I say that all the time, but unfortunately they pay me well at work. So I end up going in a lot. But maybe at some point that'll change and I can kind of back off. And we've been doing small things around the house, trying to get some stuff ready to, just have everything kind of done. I know, and John, you'll understand this. Maybe you won't, but yeah, I tell the young guys at work all the time. I said, you'll understand when you're 50, because when you're 50, some things change, and you're just like, oh my gosh, can I do this again? But no, I'm enjoying time. Like I said, I'm putting Legos together. I'm really into the 3D printing now. I've been making parts. So part of the 3D printing process, it actually started at work. I have a new boss that basically was the innovation guy at work. And so I don't know anybody that knows anything about the Ford GT that won the Nuremberg, or had the best time trial for the Nuremberg. They did that with a lot of 3D printed parts, a lot of carbon fiber and a lot of things. So Ford is kind of on this kick right now where they're like, hey, innovation, innovation, innovation. And we bought some Bamboo Lab printers.
Nice.
And I had a Sidewinder printer, which was a bed slinger. And it was so difficult to use. It just wasn't fun. So after 2 days with the Bamboo printer, I was basically printing all kinds of stuff. I was making parts with a CAD program, Inventor, and making things for work. And I was like going, oh, this is cool, because to me it's like machining from a standpoint of it's additive machining versus taking a piece of metal and cutting it down, which I enjoy that too. So it was fun. Code. Yeah, so I ended up going to, I asked my sons, I'm like, hey, you want to go in on a 3D printer? I said, we'll go to, Best Buy had one. And so I picked up a Bamboo Labs, more of a consumer one. We had an engineering model at work. And like I said, over like 3 months, I think we put over 1,000 hours on it. And I just love it. So then I ended up buying a bigger one because I wanted a little bit bigger bed that I could do some bigger prints and stuff with. And some of the things we'll be working on, I really want to do, some of your swords and stuff like that you can print from Marvel characters or this or that or whatever, and get it kind of.
Wait. So my question is, if I send you my STL files, do I get free shipping back?
Absolutely, for anything for you, John.
Okay. Good.
Yep.
So yeah, one of the things, as far as here's the problem. I have like 1,600 games in my Steam library, and that's only one of the services that I have. So I have, EA, Ubisoft, all these other, and it's like, I would love to get to the point where I could just like chill out and have gaming sessions of, hours at a time. And maybe I'll get to the point where we're kind of let's go a little bit, and I'll have to, fill that time with some proper gaming. And right now, I really play. I've been playing Call of Duty for the last year. Kind of gotten into the new Battlefield 6, and that's a lot of fun. So I play those with some of my kids, and we've been playing Monster Hunter Wilds, all kinds of different things that I get into with. My kids will be playing it for a minute, so I'll play with them. We'll do some co-op stuff or whatever, and so. Nice. I just want to keep moving on that. I figure the day I quit gaming is the day I no longer need to be around. So.
I think that a lot of people have loved to hear that you're still doing a lot of that. I mean, I think days for me are a lot different. So I haven't had a chance to pick up a game controller in so long. And the whole purpose of, I never had a true hobby outside of video games. And I just got to a point where, and I never thought I would ever have this in my life, where I didn't want to look at a screen after work. And so that's where 3D printing came into place. My wife got me my first 3D printer, and it kind of just ballooned from there. And so that's what I love, spending my time as my own individual hobby to get some steam off and not worry about looking at a screen anymore. So I definitely get that. But what I will say is that I did pick up the controller recently, because with the announcement of Resident Evil 9, I'm now trying to run through all of those that I haven't played yet so I can catch up with that storyline. So that is something I'm trying to get done, but days are a little bit different for Mr. LeBron on this side. So, but my last question for you, Mr. Halash, is if anyone wanted to, poke you again, see what you got going on, maybe join you on a LAN party. That tells my age. What is the best way, if any way, to reach out to you to just catch up and see how you're doing?
Yeah, you can reach out to me through jhalash@gmail.com. That's my main address. All of my TechNut PC stuff is still live. I haven't shut any of that stuff down. So some people have contacted me through there. But yeah, my main one is jhalash@gmail.com. And you're more than welcome to send me a note or whatever, or, give me your Steam name, or, we can hook up and play games. And it's funny, and I can't remember. Speaking of a short little story, I can't remember that it was one of the tool makers, and I can't remember who it was, that contacted me. And this was years ago when I was doing podcasting, and we played Sniper Elite 4 for hours. And he was somewhere overseas, but we had a blast. And I was like, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, here's my Steam name." And we hooked up and we were just playing games, chatting online and stuff like that. So when I do get a chance to do that stuff, that's what I do enjoy, chatting with people. And then I also run a Discord server for my family and friends and stuff like that. So, and some people have contacted me through there, and we've been adding people here and there, and people play games. Everybody plays a different type of game, so I'm always looking for somebody to play with, basically. John,
there you go.
I can run Steam on my Mac, so I think we're good.
There you go. Went to a Mac. But a couple comments here from the chat here. Taz, buddy printed a 7-foot Japanese battleship on his 3D printer.
Yamato, yeah.
Nice. That is cool.
A couple people saying, "Good to see you." It's great to see you. The long and Mr. Halash. And then it's nice to see the gang back together. And so I wanted to leave this here for, I think once kind of everything started shifting and changing over, Jeff hadn't been on for a while. I kind of was, he was gracious enough to hand me the reins to kind of keep this going. And so, this is the last comment to personally say thank you we never had our official episode of appreciate you giving me the baton and trusting me to carry on the mission that you had set forth back in 2014 to make the channel, the IT industry, a little bit better. Go against the norm, go against the bullshit marketing, go against the vendors and the people feeding bad information. I think the space has gotten a lot better over the years, but I know when we first started, there was an uphill battle for people calling us trunk slammers, calling us, one man in the vans. Shout out to Uncle Marv over at IT Business Podcast, and really bringing together a community that needed a voice that you were able to help pioneer, and the three of us having the ability to move forward with that. And I know John mentions that he hasn't done much, but I feel like you have done a lot, not only for just input, help with the podcast, and even to my own personal growth for the two of you. And so for that, appreciate you coming on, Jeff. I know you didn't have to do this, so I appreciate you taking the opportunity. John, as always, appreciate you taking the time to come out and hear. And for all of you, I hope that this was a great walk down memory lane. This is a great catch-up episode for all of you. We will be, obviously, this will be the last episode of the year. We will be back in the new year. We'll probably likely take next week off, but we'll be back with better episodes, more interviews. We'll have a lot more value to provide the MSP Unplugged community. And as mentioned, if you do love what you see, you can catch us over on the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. We're also with you on your favorite podcatcher app, so you can take us with you on the go. Head over to mspunplugged.com. You'll see all of the podcatchers that are available. Click on one of those, subscribe. We would love to have you take us with you on the go. And most importantly, we'll have a lot of great announcements down the line, but we appreciate you tuning in tonight. And we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.